How's it going, everybody? Rob Fishbeck here with Achille Carter for Volume 3 of Movies and Mental Health. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on, sir? This is going to be a delectable morsel of movies that we dissect today.
I really like that. A delectable morsel. That's the alternate title for tonight's episode. That's fantastic. So, little backstory. We had kind of talked about doing the show for a while, and then we did an episode and we were like, man, that went really well. Let's do another one. So we cut 2 earlier this year. And then all of us get busy, which is going to happen. So it's interesting because the first one, I think we did 4 movies, and then we did 3 movies.
Yes.
This was just 2 movies.
Yep.
So next time we'll be back with at least 2 or 3. So don't worry, we're not just going to cover one film and then whatever. But so tonight we're going to be talking about the films Girl Interrupted, directed by James Mangold from 1999, and then I am blanking on the director's name. I'll have to look it up. 2001's Don't Say a Word, with Michael Douglas and the late, great Brittany Murphy, amongst others, which we'll get to all that. Sean Bean, Famke Jensen. So that's going to be kind of the overarching thing tonight. It seems to be psychiatric facilities to a certain degree.
Yeah, psychiatric facilities, and none of the movies that we looked at previously had any female antagonist, protagonist, whatever you want to call it, female leads. So we did want to.
It's the misogyny, Achille.
Yes, it is.
It's the misogynists in us, that we don't want to talk about women.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like when you're looking at then, they didn't have as many movies where they painted the female characters, especially the mentally ill ones, in a good light.
For sure. Yeah, and it's interesting because we'll, as kind of time moves on, it's interesting. Again, Meek, if you're new to this channel, if you're new to the show, hi, I'm Rob Fishbeck. I love movies. And this is my friend Achille Carter, who has multiple shows on this channel. You may know him as Sir Joker. That's what most people call him, but I just call him by his government name. And you are a therapist and mental health expert. So movies and mental health, where we combined forces. How about that?
We did.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you. Which film would you like to talk about first?
There's a lot to unpack with Girl Interrupted, so let's do Don't Say a Word.
All right, cool.
Because I do think that Don't Say a Word was a little bit more straightforward, I would say.
Gotcha. Let me pull this up on Letterboxd so I can read the people all the right information. We don't have any interns here or workers. We literally, I do pretty much everything. Lego makes some thumbnails. If you watch Characters of Culture, and Delcom makes our music thumbnails. So this is 2001's Don't Say a Word, directed by Gary Felder. I'm going to click on him, see if he's got some pretty good. He directed Runaway Jury, Kiss the Girls, Homefront. Those are all pretty solid flicks right there. And you've got, look, this is a pretty stacked cast, you ask me. You got Michael Douglas, who I will watch in anything. Sean Bean, Brittany Murphy, Jennifer Esposito, Famke Jensen, Oliver Platt, just to name a few. Lance Reddick's in the film. He's got a small part. So that's the background info on the movies. Everybody knows, like, maybe not now, but like when that movie came out, the whole I'll never tell, that was big. Like in the MTV movie culture, right?
Yeah.
And I had never seen it before. It was just one of those. I was too young to watch it when it came out because it was an R-rated film. And then, look, there's 900 movies on my Letterboxd watch list. So, between you and Lego, it's the reason I watch some of these movies, are just backlogged. So I'll turn it over to you.
So Don't Say a Word is an interesting movie. It starts off as a heist movie, and I think that's kind of spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers for both of these films, by the way. But yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of spoilers for Girl Interrupted as well. So it started off as a heist movie, and then it changes gears, and you don't realize that it's still a heist movie, which I think is pretty interesting concept. And you could give a little bit more of the breakdown movie wise if you want. I love because I've worked with catatonic schizophrenics before, and that's what she was diagnosed with. So a catatonic schizophrenic is somebody who chooses not to talk. Most of the time, um, they don't say anything ever. But what she was doing, I forgot what they called it. They called it mimicking or something to that extent. But she was so skilled and so gifted. Brittany Murphy, who plays, what's the girl's name? Don't give me
That's a good question. You also sent me an email apparently with notes, but
yes,
I rarely look at notes.
Elizabeth Burrows.
Okay.
That's her name. So she is schizophrenic.
Does she actually have that though? Because I don't think she had anything. Right?
That's what the mimicking comes in. I think she did have stuff, but
not that. Not like. So
No.
if I had to take a layman's guess, she probably had a lot of trauma and PTSD, but nothing that would have kept her in a mental facility for that elongated amount of time, right?
Exactly. And, you know, because she was mimicking and so good at mirroring the actual diagnoses or the habits of somebody who's a catatonic schizophrenic, they couldn't tell. So side note, you have to be really, really good and really, really insane in the clinical definition, like I'm saying, to mimic somebody who's catatonic, because you're not supposed to respond to anything. And it's hard because, like, when they poke you with the needles and they do certain things, you have flinch reactions and startle reactions that she was able to, you know, subdue and turn off, which is really hard. So for her to be able to just like copy that, but they don't know she's copying it until kind of later on in the movie, which is what's interesting. But that's my initial impression. That I just think that catatonic schizophrenia is so interesting because I worked with people who were like that, and they move slow and they're very meticulous. And the guy would talk like this when he talked, and then he would just have all the blank stares. So she wasn't perfect, but she was pretty close. You know, Brittany Murphy, who put her foot in this role, as they call it.
Sure.
She was really good.
I agree. In terms of acting, she was probably the standout.
Yeah.
You know, Michael Douglas, again, love Michael Douglas. Yeah. You know, he kind of played very similar character that he played in Traffic and about 5 other movies that came out around that time. And Sean Bean's just, Sean Bean gets, again, spoilers for the movie. He's always dying, usually plays a bad guy. Not always. Not when he played in Game of Thrones, but you know. I had a lot of issues with the film.
Talk about it.
Okay, so I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. And I would say I'm a pretty nice guy when it comes to reviewing movies.
Yeah.
It suffered from a lot of tropes from the late 90s, especially early 2000s, with these kind of like, is it an action movie? Is it a psychological thriller? Is it
is it a heist movie? Exactly.
Well, and the problem with this one is that they're trying to do all of the same things at once. It's like it's Panic Room, and it's this, and it's it's like 5 different things put in a blend. Now, grant Panic Room didn't come out till like a year or two later, but when I think of like when it's done well, kind of all that stuff in a blender, psychological thriller, heist movie, Panic Room did it very well. Anyway, so I say this to say, the whole subplot with Jennifer Esposito, again, great actress, fine actress, no issues with her. I have no issues with any of these people personally. I just feel like I don't think that subplot needed to be there. And if it was, I would have liked more time with that character to kind of set that character up. She is the definition. And again, I'm watching this movie. It came out, almost 25 years ago. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it's like, she comes off as just like your standard guest star detective on Chicago PD or Law and Order. Like,
yeah, SVU. That's
what I mean?
SVU, like, what's her name?
Olivia Benson.
Her real name is
Mariska Hargitay.
Yes, that's what I was going to say next. But Benson, it's that same kind of, I'm cold, I'm kind of detached, I'm just here to work. I
Well, I mean, she's
don't.
one of the OGs with it, so like all the respect to her. But
Yeah.
like this is the 30th version of that
Yes.
that I've seen.
Yes. And what and me and Rob, like, we pick our movies and then we take a while before, we watch them, we digest them. Sometimes I finished Girl Interrupted 2 days ago, and I watched Don't Say a Word a while ago, but I finished Gothica today. So,
Right.
and I've seen all of them. I just haven't seen them all recently. Like, and Girl Interrupted is the one that stands out in my mind, obviously. But Gothica.
Well, we'll cover that next time. I didn't throw it on the thumbnail since I
No, I know.
But yeah.
And I was gonna say it probably gives it, to go to your point of, as a movie, I think, Don't Say a Word is the weakest movie, is the weakest of the movies. I think Brittany Murphy had a really good performance. I think Michael Douglas was, up to snuff. I think Michael Douglas's daughter was fine. I mean, again, the performances were okay. What's that man's name? Platt?
Oliver Platt.
Oliver Platt. The duplicitous other person. He was fine. And a lot of it is they were fine.
For sure.
I look at, but from the psychological standpoint, Michael Douglas did a bunch of stuff that the timetable was unrealistic, trying to get her out of, first you got to get her out of her catatonia, which is, she hasn't spoken for 10 years before that.
Before she said, I'll never tell.
Yes. So she hadn't spoken for 10 years before that. So to me, that's like, is that really going to happen? And I know you got to suspend disbelief with these movies, but we're here to bring the critique of the psychological aspect. But what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we'll just get into the weeds with the film then. So here's what I liked. I liked the idea of having somebody that has information that somebody else needs, but they're rather in a mental institution. Right? Now, obviously, we know she wasn't actually insane. She was doing this to keep herself safe from these people. But so there's that. I liked the idea of Michael Douglas is on a mission to get this information out of her for a reason.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also liked that. But here's what I didn't like. The heist thing was kind of dumb.
Weak. It was
weak. The whole, well, we need this information because he's kidnapped your daughter. I mean, like, again, all the respect in the world to our, police and government agencies that are looking into child abductions in this country. Like, again, I guess you don't know it until you're in the situation, but there were so many opportunities, like, to come out and say, hey, this is like when he was cutting through the parade.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my daughter has been kidnapped. There are people following me. Pretend nothing is wrong. Pretend nothing is wrong. Why didn't he do that? I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to sit here and rewrite the screenplay, but those were the things that I thought were weak. And then for me, the weakest thing was having Famke Janssen in a cast for 2/3 of the movie, laid up in bed. Why don't you just make him a single dad? Like, what does she even need to be there for?
Well, she's there to be like, and I feel like a lot of movies did this at that time. Oh my God, our daughter, and you want to put him in the position to be the white knight. And this is how it was written. I didn't write the movie. I'm not making stuff up. I'm just calling what I see. And, one of the things that, to me, looking at it from a clinical aspect, if you're going to push a girl that hard who hasn't been talking for 10 years, you can push her into not talking at all and shutting down. And that's what I was just like, you're pushing super hard, bro. I get the timeline, but the timeline's not realistic. It's not real because if she hasn't said anything for 10 years, why is there all of a sudden a 2-week timeline? She hasn't said anything for years. So to me, it's like, I get that. So for me, that clinical aspect of that was kind of like, I don't know. But to dovetail back in, you're not going to, I'm sorry, if I have something like that going on, I'm not going to be at my clinical best. Not going to be able to work with me. Like, he's
For
supposed to
sure.
be the best child psychiatrist and, all of the city and all of that. You're not going to be at your top. There's no way. If your daughter's kidnapped and your wife is being watched, sorry, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me. So that's why, like, in the notes, I kind of stopped taking notes because I was just like, it's more like they're trying to push 3 or 4 movies together than it is they're trying to. I don't know. I just felt like the end was okay, but it was kind of weak because she just did like a 3. She's not talking the whole first 3/4 of the movie. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he uses his magic fairy dust and goes bippity boppity boo, and she's talking.
Takes her to the subway and
Like, come on,
100%.
she's over here, a super detective, breaking codes and deciphering and remembering stuff, and he's flipped like under a gun. I'm sorry,
I'm not buying it.
Unless you're highly trained, you're not responding in that way.
Right.
A typical person, because in that moment you become a dad. You become a dad, and you become a husband, and you become everybody else that's upset and frustrated about what's going on.
For sure.
I don't see you doing all of this, James Bond stuff at the last minute.
The whole mirror thing, and it's the wrong grave, and the doll. It's just,
yes, the doll. She did. This is and it tied up very neatly, very conveniently.
exactly. Exactly. I don't even think we saw what happened to Jennifer Esposito. I think it was just like that was it. I say this to say, this is the definition of one of those movies that should be remade because it could be remade better.
Yes.
It
would kick butt now with all the mental health awareness going on.
It would kick butt. And even if you kept the same plot, so you keep the heist thing, blah, 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 blah. People don't want to listen to me when I say these things because then they want 10 episodes. This would be something that would be like a perfect 4-episode limited series. 4 episodes. Mm-hmm. I don't need 6. I don't need 8. I most certainly don't need 12. But I think in 45 to 50-minute chunks, in like a 4-episode limited series, you could flesh out Sean Bean's character and Famke Janssen's character and Michael Douglas's character and Brittany Murphy's character and Jennifer Esposito's character and Oliver Platt's character. And then everything would just be a lot more cohesive and it would make a lot more sense. Again, I don't need to spend 2 episodes of backstory on Sean Bean. 15, 20 minutes will do.
First episode.
The first episode. Sure.
Because you showed a family and you set the table in the first episode, then you show her maybe as a little,
and then at the end of the first episode is him going into the psychiatric ward to meet her.
Yeah.
And
it's like, and Oliver Platt's girlfriend was the one that got killed, right?
Correct.
And he didn't know about it. And it's just like, again, you're putting all this pressure on him to, for one, save your girlfriend. So to me, okay, if I wanted, so what is that, back double insurance? So you have Platt's girlfriend, you're killing her, but then you have his family, and you have his daughter. You're putting, and there's something to be said, like you're putting all of this pressure on him. So I think that the way they portrayed his psyche, like his mental health, and he panicked, but he was still like, cool Michael Douglas. Like he didn't really seem like, he didn't have a lot of dad moments, like a lot of any flustered moments. That was all Famke Janssen.
I agree. Uh, that's my review of Don't Say a Word.
Yep. And side note, like, and again, I don't know if this was one of the last movies she did before she died, but
No. So I mean, gosh, because for me, I didn't see this one because it was rated R, but like,
yeah,
and well, 8 Mile came out the next year. I did sneak that one. So you got
yes,
8 Mile, you got
yeah,
Just Married with Ashton Kutcher, you got Uptown Girls with Dakota Fanning. That, I mean, man, I would say this was definitely, well, she was also in Girl Interrupted, but I would say
yeah.
this was definitely the start of her just kind of
Mhm.
dominating the box office for a handful of years. And then unfortunately,
Mhm.
yes, she passed away.
And it's
I think
interesting because
2006.
I think at the time she was big, but she didn't get the acting credit that she deserved because she acted her butt off, and most of
Well, they didn't know what to do with her. She was young, she was attractive,
yeah.
rom-coms made a lot of money at the time, stuff like that. Like, here, we'll just, I'm
And she's
sure.
really, and she has like that, like she's quirky. I feel like she
Sure.
plays quirky really well, and they didn't know. It's not Jennifer Aniston where okay, you're gonna put her in the lead. It's not clear cut what they did with a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of the blondes, Sarah Michelle Gellar's and the people like that.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it was kind of an unfortunate period for actresses just in general, because like you mentioned, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I think
Yeah.
about like this is when like Jessica Alba's emerging, Jennifer
Hmm.
Love Hewitt's pretty popular. I'm talking about more with the younger crowds,
Yeah.
that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. But I mean, I just I don't think Hollywood knows what they're doing more than half of the time. And I
Oh
think,
yeah.
now that media is what it is, people have started to figure out that like the people that are running Hollywood, like some of us probably have way better ideas on like
Hmm.
trajectories of film than they do.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I mean that to say like, I don't know how some of these people got in the positions that they got in. They
Hmm.
just, they worked their
Hmm.
way up the corporate ladder. And it's, I was looking at a chart earlier about superhero box office by year over the last 25 years. And it's rough.
Yeah.
It's bad, and I can only imagine these studios that got billions of dollars wrapped up in projects that are coming out over the next 2 to 3 years. What do you do with them?
Yeah.
And some of them are going to be hits. So going back to Brittany Murphy, I look at that time period and,
Yeah.
like, did you ever see The Butterfly Effect?
Yes.
You remember that? Like
Yeah.
that was an okay movie. Could have been a lot better. Or the number
Mhm.
23 with Jim Carrey. Like that was could have been a lot better. I
Yeah.
just think about these movies and it's like, man, they cut so many corners and they just expected people to think like, oh, this is really good.
Hmm.
And
Well,
this movie,
that
yeah.
was when you threw a name out there. Okay, that was kind of been talked about, like the death of the movie superstar, the movie star, like the super icon. Who's left? Denzel, obviously, Leo, and Leo's been kind of gone for a while.
Well, see, the thing with Leo is that, he did Killers of the Flower Moon last year, which is a
Oh, that's right. I forgot
masterpiece.
he did do
And
that.
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to figure out a way. See, I mean, I guess trauma and PTSD, but like people aren't necessarily suffering from mental, or I should say rather, people aren't having, mental illnesses or have mental illnesses in that movie. But I'd love to rope that and somehow weave that into this show at some point. Because it's truly a masterpiece. And just to talk about like the toll of what people were doing to Native Americans back then. Anyways, my
Mhm.
point is this: he did that box office bomb.
Yeah,
I know so many people that love film that were like, I'll get to it. It's 3.5 hours long. Leo's
it's
previous movie.
hours long.
Have you seen it?
Not yet. It's three and a
Is
half.
that is that part of the reason? Like, if it was a 2 hour movie, do you think you would have watched it by now?
Listen, we went and saw Smile 2 this weekend, and it was probably like for me like 20 minutes too long. Like I'm at the point where it's like, all right, get to it. Like
And
you
it
can.
probably wasn't even 2 hours.
It might have been close. It was
Close.
pretty
Okay.
close
Yeah.
because I think the movie started like 7:40, and I think we were done at 9:40. Like it was right at that mark where it's just like you. There's so much fluff in these movies now because I have to,
Well, part of the reason it's a marketing strategy because studios feel that with the price of just a ticket, forget concessions, but just the price of a ticket is so much anymore that they don't want they want people to feel they're getting their dollars worth to go see a movie. And the other problem is that you have this melding of television and film that started, you know, again, where I don't need to go all the way back to The Sopranos, but like, you know, with your Mad Men's and your Breaking Bads and your Walking Deads and your House of Cards and, you know, between AMC and Netflix starting like 15 years ago, and then, you know, especially the last 10 years, and now everybody with an asshole's got a streaming service and 95 shows on there that are supposed to be great. And everybody, you know, recommends you 5 shows a week. And, you know, it's like, hey man, you're a great person. I'm so glad we're friends. I'm never going to get to any of these shows you recommended me. Cause you know, right.
I don't know. And people like, oh, and you know, everyone's like, oh, you didn't see that in the movie. You didn't see that in the movie. I say, well, I kind of have to divvy it up because I have Ayana and Devin who are 19 and 17, and they're not going to want to go and see certain films. And then I have Heaven and Armani who are younger, and it's kind of like a balancing act. If I'm going to $120 to go to the movie theaters, $120, like between snacks and, you know, 5 tickets or 4 tickets, it's a lot of money. And I'm going to go. I personally would rather watch horror movies in the movie theater. That's something I've always liked. You know, obviously, Gladiator 2 I want to see because it's Denzel. So movies like that I want to see. I'll see the you know, me and Patty want to try to see Joker 2 this weekend. I don't know if it's going to still be in a movie theater.
Well, dude, I mean, forget that. Just spend the $20 and rent it at home. You don't have to get in the car because that's what you're going to spend just on the tickets.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you want to watch, just because it's coming out on digital on Friday. So if you're watching this episode not live, it's probably already out. Yeah. But you were talking about Leo, and like his previous movie was Don't Look Up, which went straight to Netflix. You know, I loved it.
That was pretty
another 5-star movie, but yeah.
But you know, and what you see is that the guys like that, the Brad Pitts, that, you know, and I'll put Matt Damon, I'll put Ben in there, I'll put Leo in there. You know, George Clooney hasn't done stuff in a long time, but
he has. It's just not struck a chord with audiences.
Right.
Completely.
And then you got De Niro. So you got these people where they're picking and choosing because they have that cachet. But even what did Equalizer 3 make? And I'm sure it did good, and I'm sure
it did well, but it didn't make superhero money. So the studios don't take those things seriously.
No. You know, you put that movie out why? Only because of one reason.
Denzel Washington.
And Antoine Fuqua, he's a really good director.
And when they work together, they're like Humphrey Bogart and John Huston. Yeah. They just, you know, it's going to be good. It might not change your life. It might not be the greatest thing you've ever seen, but you know, if those two are getting together to do a movie, it's going to be worth your time.
Yes. You know, and then you have like maybe Helen Mirren, and you have, I can't remember her, Devil Wears Prada.
Meryl Streep. You know, you have a few ladies. But they're not different. No offense to any of them. They are not getting asses in seats at $12 a ticket on a Friday night anymore. You know, and again, that's if you live in a cheaper area. You know, it's usually $18 or $15. 18,
I think, after matinee weekend might be $19 for $19 for one adult ticket. And adults start at 12 years old. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, like I said. So I'm gonna pick and choose what I'm going to the movie theater to see. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get to the gusto. Let's get to the Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving dinner. It's funny because Don't Say a Word took place over Thanksgiving, but yes. So listen, I want to set up James Mangold for a second.
Go ahead, do what you got to do.
This is one of his films I hadn't seen yet. James Mangold's like, you know me, I'm always rooting for kind of the the underappreciated, the
Mhm.
underdogs, if you will.
Mhm.
That being said, I'll still talk about the Beatles and Martin Scorsese all day long. No problem. No problem. But James Mangold, you know, he made Copland in 97. Great film. I think it's criminally underrated. You know, most people know him now as the guy that brought us Logan. You know,
Mhm.
he recently did the newest Indiana Jones installment, the first one without Spielberg. He
Mhm.
directed Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese
Oh yeah.
Witherspoon. He
Mhm.
has the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, coming out on Christmas
Mhm.
this year. That's he's got a great resume, you know, and it's kind of been all over the
Mhm.
place, and not everything's like huge, but he's got a great resume. So going into this movie right out of the gate with the Simon and Garfunkel music, I was like, so full disclosure, I had heard about this movie because Angelina Jolie won an Oscar for it. So of course it popped up in my, you know, reading of the Academy Awards. I know the poster. I've seen some
Mhm.
still images from it. I had no idea it was a period piece.
Mhm.
So when it opened with the Simon and Garfunkel stuff, I was like, oh hell yeah. I mean, the whole soundtrack in that movie was
Mhm.
incredible. You know, it's right up my alley. You know, it's like boomer galore,
Mhm.
you know. Except I will say this, it was very strange. In the middle of the movie, they played How to Fight Loneliness, a song by Wilco, which they're from around here. Shout out to
Okay.
Wilco. We love Wilco.
Okay.
Which is, I believe, is short
Shout
for
out
Will
Wilco.
County,
I don't even
which
know
is
who
where
that
I
is.
live.
Uh-huh.
And they played a song called How to Fight Loneliness, and I was like, that's definitely a 90s song. But
Yeah.
okay, in a period piece, that's fine. It wasn't as jarring as hearing a rap song in an Elvis Presley biopic, but that's neither here nor there. So
I love it. Yeah, Girl Interrupted. The cachet on the screen. Whoopi, Angelina Jolie. What's her name's? Um, what's her name? I can't even remember her name.
Winona Ryder.
Winona, yeah, Winona Ryder. I mean, and that's Brittany Murphy. Brittany Murphy was really good in this movie. Really good in this movie. It was like, wow. And
I think that was maybe one of the hardest things for me because I watched these back to back. And
thank you,
like I
Cameron.
like Brittany Murphy and Don't Say a Word. Like I said, she was probably the best performance. But
Yeah.
after seeing her in Girl Interrupted,
Yep.
it was just like, whoa, yeah.
It was so the whole feel, and I know we started off with Susanna outside of the hospital, and then she comes in.
Yeah, yeah.
But the whole feel of the hospital, the setting, it was like that's what psych wards like, their own environment, and they caught it. It was a lot of okay, this is really like a fan. It might not be as family like that, but it's very much its own universe, and that's what I loved about the movie.
Sure.
That they caught it so well.
I also love the first act where you were kind of getting flashbacks and all the like
Mhm.
it did a really good job instead of just like a giant exposition dump.
Yep.
They did it that way, and I thought it worked really well for the film.
Yeah. It led into her going into the hospital. So what I thought was interesting was that okay, you're setting the table, and that's what they did. And the movie was I don't even know how long the movie is.
2 hours and 5 minutes, and that's with credits. So
And
about
that's
2 hours. Yeah.
but think about you have the same 2 hours for that you did maybe a little bit longer for. I mean, maybe it's a little bit longer than Don't Say a Word, but look at what you cover with more characters, but better writing.
Better writing, better directing,
Yes,
better editing.
yes,
Not
so,
not a Jennifer Esposito subplot.
yeah, and then you see her getting to it where Susanna, who's Winona Ryder's character, spoils for Girl Interrupted. Sorry if you haven't seen it in 100 years. She tries to commit suicide, and this is where you really see the switch of am I crazy or am I not? And that's when she says, maybe I was just a girl interrupted, and it's like, well, what was interrupted? No, we haven't read the book, Jimmy. Was it the
I'm borderline illiterate, so no, I'm kidding.
Was it the
What about borderline?
you interrupted my normalcy, my normal quest, or did you interrupt my life and I just kind of needed a break for a year and a half?
Is that how long she was there? Was a year and a half?
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
knew it was at least a year because like I paid attention to all that shit. But all right, let's get into the guts of this
Yeah.
movie because
Let's dig in.
I don't even know where to start. So I'm gonna let you lead the first question you wanna or topic you want to talk about.
It's a hierarchy in there, and that makes sense. Let's talk about Angelina first, because I think Angelina, she gave an amazing performance, but I think everybody was really good. Everybody brought the A game.
Everybody, fantastic.
Everybody.
Elizabeth Moss, Claire Duvall. I'm probably not pronouncing her name right. She was in The Faculty. Yeah.
So, Alpha Dog, her diagnosis obviously is sociopathology. She's a sociopath. I saw a lot of borderline traits, and it was just interesting to see somebody, in the same way that Joaquin, little Cocoa Puffs, right? In the same way that it plays himself a lot, I think Angelina Jolie goes into that darkness where she has those dark, like narcissistic sociopathology tendencies. And I think she just caught it so well. The drug use and the thrill seeking. I know they call.
I mean, she's always coming in by police escort.
Yeah. Hi.
So, they never say what she did to require that.
Yep.
Each time, but you can leave it up to your own interpretation.
Yeah.
She's very much a Bonnie and Clyde personality. Huh?
She stole Brittany Murphy's money after she hung herself. It's just like, that is so dirty. You push her buttons, and I think she's more narcissist than she is sociopath. And there's a big connect. But I also think
why is she in there? Like sociopaths, they don't have any reason to be in a mental health facility. I mean, maybe because it's the 60s. Is that why? Or
why not? So the diagnosis they give you is the main diagnosis. She had a lot of issues.
Okay.
She had a lot of mental health issues.
All right. So I think this would be a good time to accurately define all of these things because I got questions. So first of all, this is not a news program. We're not going to get into talking about politics on here. But that being said, you hear terms like sociopath thrown out all the time, all willy-nilly in the media and stuff. So, and it's not just in that, but I hear it all the time, like, oh, that person's a sociopath, or yeah, I think that person's a sociopath.
Yeah.
And I think that also has to do with all of the true crime popularity that's taken off the last year, because you used to hear the term psychopath all the time, and now everybody says sociopath, right? So I say that to say my interpretation of a sociopath is just somebody that cares about themselves. They have narcissistic traits. Again, this is just my definition. I want you to correct the definition. They have narcissistic traits. They care about themselves. They manipulate other people to do what they're going to want at the end of the day. And, yes, maybe some of them are serial killers, but I would say from my view, 99.9% of them are just regular people. They're just known as assholes. So do I have that all wrong? What do what do you got?
The biggest difference between, like, when you talk about a sociopath and a psychopath, psychopaths they're not even plugged into the world. Sociopaths don't have empathy. So sociopaths are.
So they would never feel bad for taking advantage of somebody.
Nope, neither one of them would. But
okay,
where Angelina Jolie could go back and forth. That's why I don't think she was a complete sociopath. I feel like she was more narcissistic, or even like borderline or schizophrenic, something like that, where she's doing extreme things and she's impulsive, but she's so meticulous and she's so well thought out. She's not doing things out of like, just, oh, I fell into this, right? She does a lot of things that are very meticulous and very planned out, triggering people and saying certain things and pushing buttons. She's really smart. She's probably like akin to a Harley Quinn. Somebody who knows a lot of mental health stuff and knows.
So she knows the difference between right and wrong, whereas psychopaths
does.
really, it's kind of blurred lines.
Psychopaths don't give a shit.
They don't, okay. Maybe I was trying to be too nice. Okay.
Psychopaths are in there to try to kill. And I think that, you know, like even like when we see Angelina Jolie's character come into the scene, come into the film, what the hell happened to Julia? Bop, bop, bop. The roommate, it's like, who? You know, and I would have liked to see what she was about, but she just comes in on fire, like, okay, I'm establishing my dominance. She's very alpha.
Right.
Very alpha.
And I think one of the people, maybe it was Whoopi, said that she had only been gone 2 weeks. Angelina Jolie's character.
Yep.
So, yes. So, okay, before we continue.
Lisa, that's the name.
Lisa, yes. So before we continue,
yeah.
Again, when I say I feel maybe I understand now what a sociopath is, I'm talking a very surface level understanding, you know, full disclosure. You have explained borderline personality disorder to me either on the show or in privately when I've picked your brain about mental health topics. Just I'm a curious cat. That's why they call me Whiskers. Harry Carey. That's a little Harry Carey. Anyways, so borderline personality disorder. Again, going back to my small frame of reference, I assume borderline personality disorder is somebody you're not necessarily born with it, but due to childhood trauma, you develop this disorder that you'll have the rest of your life that is not curable. Where you kind of struggle a little bit with your identity and you fluctuate between different things. I know I'm butchering this definition, but there's a reason why I explained it like I explained it, because and I don't want to hop around too much because I want to kind of go through the whole film, but at the end of the movie, they claim she's cured of borderline personality disorder after a year, and that doesn't make any sense. I understand it's like 1968 because 67 was the graduation, and then they showed MLK getting killed, and I saw the Bobby Kennedy sign in the yard. So I'm like, okay, it's 1968. So like, what? Explain away. Yeah.
So sociopath is antisocial personality disorder. They just call them sociopaths. Antisocial. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to deal with people. Did Angelina Jolie have that? Yes. But she also had things that humanized her. And you probably wouldn't see not a lot of humanistic stuff from most people. When we talk about borderline personality, most of the people in it. So when we talk about borderline is what it sounds like. It's the borderline, like it's a line between, you know, narcissism and a personality disorder and a mood disorder. And it's a bunch of things where, so Lisa pushes people away her whole life. But when we go to Winona Ryder, who they said her diagnosis was borderline, it wasn't healed. There's no way. I've never known of anybody who just stops magically being.
Well, my question, so again, I don't want to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
I have to continue to further explain my thought process so that way you can correct it. And again, correct it for all these people, because one of the goals of this show is to kind of separate movie magic versus like stark reality, right? So for example, this is just my theory. She doesn't have anything wrong with her. She's somebody who was suffering from slight depression and anxiety because she was a part of the 1960s revolution, where all of a sudden women were going, I don't have to be married at 19 with a baby in the oven at 20 and then hang out by the oven until I die. Yeah. So she was trying to kind of figure out what to do with her life, as were a lot of women and men at that time period. So to me, in like the sex stuff, like sexual pleasures, listen, this is the sexual revolution. Everybody was sleeping around and popping acid and smoking pot all day. That was the times. So to me, there's again, maybe she suffered from slight depression, but mild at that. I understand she tried to commit suicide, but was that just kind of like because she didn't know? All right, I'll shut up for a minute. What do you got?
No. So Jimmy and Carolyn actually laid out good points. So Carolyn said she doesn't quite fit that for me. I hate you, don't leave me. I think.
Oh, that's right. That sounds like a key sign for borderline, right?
But Winona, she does have that. And they don't, so they don't, but she does have those traits. And so what you see with borderline, you see fear of abandonment. You see people that I don't want you to leave me. So even when Jared Leto was going away to war, it's like, okay, she didn't want to leave her friends, but she also didn't want to leave him. So she was kind of divided, which makes sense. So with borderline, I push people away before they can hurt me.
Gotcha.
And I don't know that she necessarily. You can have traits of something. I said before, you could have traits of something and not necessarily have it for the duration of it. Like you can have traits of borderline and have it, and it doesn't have to be pervasive, which means really.
You don't have to be medicated for it or seek mental health treatment. You can just have symptoms of it and maybe put some kinks in your hose of life. Yes. But yeah.
And so the hypersexuality is a trait of borderline because you have risk-taking behaviors. You have, I'm going to gamble. I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to have a lot of sex. Those are all hyper behaviors that you do when like risk-taking. Promiscuous. So she was that according to the movie. That's why I remember when they made the big thing about promiscuous. Am I promiscuous? Was she? It didn't seem like she was with that many people, but what's a lot? 2, 3, 4. His name was.
I think it was Neil.
Oh.
I don't like dead air.
Toby.
Wasn't Neil, it was Toby.
It was Tobias.
Toby.
So I also
Toby from HR.
So when you look at borderline, there's a fear of abandonment. It's somebody's probably hurt her. So I don't know that she necessarily had that part of her life where somebody hurt her. It could have been. We didn't see that though. I think she was really scared to move on to the next part of her life. So she wanted to kill herself or she wanted to hurt herself. Could have been acting out. You get some people that are schizoaffective. You could see a lot of that too. The thing that probably got the borderline personality disorder was the suicide attempt, the promiscuity, and the inability to form relationships. And then the people pleasing, because, for a large part of the movie, Winona was a people pleaser.
What is SAID? What does that mean?
Oh, sexual abuse, probably.
Oh, gotcha. By her father? Jimmy, let us know in the chat.
Did they say? Oh, he's talking about the book. I didn't read the book, so it could have been. Which is why she brought up the genetic factor. All this stuff.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's definitely genetic too. If you have a mom that's bipolar and a dad that's borderline, or vice versa, you're probably going to have something that wells up in your brain at some point. So there's a genetic factor too.
Okay.
Jimmy, I wish I had time to read the book. Oh, wait. So when we talk about borderline, so when we talked about Angelina Jolie, we saw the definite, the alpha in her. And I think that narcissist trait is what attracted Winona to her. Because a lot of times when you look at a borderline, a person who's like a sociopath or extreme narcissist, they typically bring out more borderline traits in people because borderline people people please and want to make people happy. And if you deal with somebody who's a narcissist, the whole point of a narcissist is they don't ever tell you you're good enough. I said Lisa.
Gotcha.
I know it's Lisa James. I said that. James Dorian.
If you're watching the show after the fact, Achilles is just arguing with one of our friends in the chat, the live chat right now. Hey,
I
Jimmy.
like arguing with James because he's typically wrong. So they set the stage for her. Angelina Jolie could have been, I know they kept saying antisocial and all that stuff, but it looked like she was just a drug user, a really bad drug user, making really bad choices. I feel like she was a narcissist. Was she abusive? Yes, but you get people that are just assholes. So
Sure.
she could have been a narcissist. Lisa could have been a narcissist just as much as she could have been a sociopath. I do think what we saw with the button pushing and triggering people and all that stuff, that's her wanting to feel grandiose and bigger than everybody. So those are some antisocial traits. With the borderline, with Winona, I think the big question was supposed to be how mentally ill was she really?
Again, this is just my opinion. I
Yeah.
think she suffered from slight depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it. Because I mean that scene like halfway through the movie where Whoopi Goldberg throws her in the tub and it's like, you don't need to be here. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
So that leads me. Now, this is where things might get a little controversial, but for those of you that know me, hi, I'm Rob Fishbeck. I don't have any problems with anybody on this entire planet, but I am sometimes a little controversial.
I have problems with Jimmy Nails. Go ahead, Robert.
So I'm watching this movie, and there's been a handful of films I've watched over the years that I've had discussions with members of our LGBTQ community, which is great. And they'll point out to me, they'll go, Rob, you know that character was gay, or you know that character was whatever, blank, fill in the blank. And like a dumbass, I just look like a deer in headlights, and I'm like, nope, didn't pick up on that at all whatsoever. Prime example, Alfred Hitchcock's Rope with Jimmy Stewart. Another prime example, Thelma and Louise, directed by Ridley Scott. So I say this to say I'm watching the movie and I'm like, there's really nothing wrong with this girl. Like, she seems, completely normal for the most part. What is her infatuation with Angelina Jolie? And at some point, like, there's a sequence when then they run away together and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking like, oh, maybe that was part of her struggle. She doesn't even know that she likes girls. But she feels that there's something wrong with her. And then again, and like at the end, she visits her in the hospital bed and everything.
Yeah.
Now, I've been told I was wrong that thought that that's not true. And that's fine. That's fine. It was just a guess. But I'm gonna turn it to the expert. What are your...
So here's my thing with a lot of these movies. I think that it's with Angelina Jolie's character, there's a lot of hypersexualization, right? She also, remember when she was talking about what she had to do, to get drugs, and she said she mentioned it real quick in the bus stop what I had to do to get here or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that when you get somebody who is far enough into drugs, and I think a big part of what was going on with Lisa was the drugs. And the shaking, and you're not just crazy, you're shaking. Those are withdrawal shakes, heroin or cocaine or something like that. So you don't just get that. How do you get those drugs? Well, let's see. If a lady has the drugs, I've seen people that don't discriminate. They don't care. So
they don't discriminate.
They don't discriminate because the drugs are what they want. So they'll do what they have to do. They'll run through a brick wall. I think the way they portrayed it in the movie, you were supposed to pick up on the sexual tension because there was sexual tension. Okay. That's because Angelina Jolie, I just don't think gave a shit. And I think Winona Ryder was more like, oh, I'm attracted to you as a person, to your personality. I'm attracted to your strength.
So it might not have been sexual attraction.
It could have been sexual, but I don't think it had to be sexual. I think that it was very convenient for the movie to make it sexual. Now, does that mean that she was lesbian? Again, I don't think Angelina Jolie would define herself as any one thing. I think Winona Ryder, except for the time when she kisses Angelina Jolie, except for the time when she kisses Lisa, you don't really see anything else. Like there's proximity, there's closeness, there's touching, there's smiles. But how different is that than two best friends?
Sure.
So I
Sure.
think if you want to put the lens on it, that the scene in the early film where she pins her to the wall, yeah, that's tension. And
Right.
like you can argue scenes, but I think overall, the way they wanted to paint it was to make it so that you could see that Angelina Jolie was about power and control. Winona just was like, oh my God. And it could have been attraction. I'm not going to say that it's not,
Sure.
but I don't
Sure.
think it was. I don't think it was specifically sexual attraction because Winona was Susan was pretty much just picked it as straight, except for her interactions with Angelina.
Right.
She would mess with the orderly. She had the boyfriend. She had a doctor. There was a long line of her being with guys, and except for Angelina Jolie. So is that her being gay, or is that her being attracted to Angelina and who she was? And Lisa, I think again, she was touching a lot, and I've been doing a lot of stuff with them in a sexual way because Lisa just wanted to be able to manipulate people.
Gotcha. That makes
And I
sense.
think that, like with Torch, remember when she was like sucking on her finger or something? Torch probably didn't have anybody touch her or look at her in a sexual way in a long time. Remember when Winona and Toby were going out into the yard and she was
Right.
watching out the window and she ran off crying? It's because you have that thing. I'm longing for that connection. So that's what I think it was. I don't think that you were necessarily wrong. I think you saw what they wanted you to see, what people, when they made the movie, what they wanted it to be portrayed
And
as.
again, full disclosure, we got to look at context. This is a movie that was made in 1999,
Yes.
filmed and written, I'm assuming, in 1998, takes place in 1968.
Yeah.
So, I think we've come leaps and bounds.
Oh, yeah.
Leaps and bounds since then with how mental health is portrayed on camera.
Yeah.
How, sexuality is portrayed on
Mhm.
camera. Tropes, bad tropes and good tropes,
Yep.
right? Stereotypes, bad stereotypes, and ones that are actually applicable to a given situation.
Mhm.
I think, so I always, it doesn't matter what the movie is. I always try to at least look through it through that lens to an extent, because, it's like me and Lego talk about this all the time. William Friedkin's Cruising with Al Pacino.
Yeah.
I think it's a great document of its time.
Yep.
I don't think it accurately represents those cultures of our country in 2024, but I think it's a great document of 1979, 1980. You know what I mean? So
no, and I agree. And you're looking at what year was it written? What year did it come out?
Well, it came out in 99. Yeah.
Looking at 25 years
25,
ago.
exactly.
25 years ago. And if you plop somebody from today 25 years ago, it would be culture shock, because one, we're looking at it from a modern lens when it wasn't written in a modern lens today. So you can look back and say, okay, there was these innuendos and stuff like that. It could have been. I'm not.
And it wasn't necessarily written in a modern lens in 99 because it was taking place, 30 years before that, where it was you could be put in a mental institution if you were a homosexual, or you know what I mean? Like 72 or 73, it was still a law, until then. So
it was interesting. So I liked when they were in the cab and which was hilarious. They put her in the cab and told her, "Hey, you know what? You go ahead. You take the cab to the psych ward." That wouldn't happen now. They would have handcuffs and a police escort. So some of that stuff, them going out to get ice cream together.
You talking about for Winona? Oh, for Winona Ryder's character, like when she first went there.
When Susan went first went to the hospital. They put her in the cab, and the
Yeah.
parents followed, and it was just like, you're not gonna do that.
Well, if she hadn't committed a crime, there would be no reason for her to have a police escort. But I get what you're saying. She would have at least been through a hospital or some sort of an ambulance ride or something.
Listen, if I tried to put one of my guys that I used to work with in a cab, they're taking the cab and
They ain't going to the hospital.
They're not going to end up at the hospital. So there was a whole, and you can say, oh, if somebody told the cabbie, oh, here's $20, take it to the hospital, don't stop. I'd be like, all right, here's $60, take me here.
Right, and they're not liable or for that. Yeah, exactly.
I liked Whoopi's role because Whoopi was probably what you see nowadays, a hard ass but realistic. Like,
sure.
I need you. I'm here to help you, but I'm not going to baby you. I'm not going to hold your hand through this.
Because most of the people that were there were just like the intake girl. Oh, well, you'll talk about that with your therapist.
Yes.
Like this lady, she ain't got nothing going on in that brain. There's no, barometer for getting that job. She's just sitting at a desk filling out paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And again, things are we have leaps and bounds.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And
and it's not perfect. We have massive holes in our healthcare system, but
so many holes. Like, even if you go in the psych unit, today, they can tell you to take your medication, but some of these people are so sophisticated, high functioning schizophrenic, high functioning this, that means I can go into a psych ward. Okay, I can mask up and be normal, quote unquote, for a 72-hour hold or for 2 weeks. And I can't make you commit to therapy, and I can't make you do anything. I just got to say what you want to hear. Right. Because hospitals are more churn people out. They come in, let's get them out. They come in, let's get them out.
We can talk. Well, listen, I'd love to sit down and have a long healthcare conversation on this program anytime, any day. There are, from what I have seen, there are multiple problems. I will bring up two massive ones, and I'm curious to know if you would agree that these are two of the massive ones. Number one, a lot of these places now are in the business of making money by billing insurance companies.
Yep.
So they want a fast turnaround so they can get another bed filled because they make twice as much money from two people versus just one. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying the people that work at these places wake up and are greedy that want to make money, but the corporations that own the corporations that they work for. Right. And then problem number two is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, everybody is taking mental health seriously, and it doesn't even just have to be mental health. All of our hospitals are overrun. All of them are understaffed, right? Mm-hmm. And when we specifically want to talk about mental health, the other reason they want to empty out that bed after just a couple of days is because there's 35 people on a wait list for that shitty bed.
Yep. Yeah. Hospitals. So she came in because she tried to commit suicide. She might get to stay. First of all, she's not staying for a year and a half. She's not going to get triaged or sent to a hospital, a long-term psych ward, because she wasn't psychotic enough to stay in a hospital. Honestly, you got to be a true threat to yourself or others. That's it. That's the only reason.
She had not committed any crimes. She had not tried to bring harm to another person, only herself.
Yes. So that would keep you in a hospital. But that's not keeping you in the hospital
for maybe a week.
Yes. Yep.
At that.
Yeah.
At most.
Yeah. And now these hospitals, they have caps on everything. They're not paying past a certain amount of weeks. So
because they know once the insurance runs out, you're not paying out of pocket for that shit. They can send you $100,000 medical bill. You ain't gonna pay it though.
No.
No.
So. And they know that. So the payment and how it's set up, even the psych experience, it's, first of all, you have to hunt for a good psychiatric hospital. They don't have they don't have the hospitals that are really trying to help people. They want to get them in, they want to get them stabilized, they want to get them out. She wouldn't have
Unless
probably
you're,
said,
unless you're a multimillionaire,
yeah,
and at that point you just buy a condo somewhere and hire a life coach for 6 months.
you'll go to a retreat, and that's what they do now. Or
I've learned so much.
yeah,
And again, I don't mean to belittle anybody, it's just that's the kind of the standard, like, I've learned so much. And it's like, great. I know people that are sober, and they tell me all the time, like, they would first start going to AA meetings when they get clean. And the people that would lead these meetings would go, look around this room. There's 25 people in here. One of y'all might be able to stay sober. The rest of you guys are going to relapse at some point, and it's just like, that's just the reality in which we live in.
Yep. Let's talk about Brittany Murphy and her messed up poor self.
Dude, well, listen, if your dad's raping you.
But did you hear what she said? Daisy, that was her name in the movie.
That she liked it.
But
does she know any better? Was she sexually abused since what age? I'm just literally making up a number. But if she'd been sexually abused since she was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, then
because think about it. She
is there
was
a
the one
syndrome?
that got out?
Is there? So I know what Stockholm syndrome is. Is there a syndrome like in like the DSM or something like that, where like somebody that's sexually abused from a young age forms a connection with, or a dependence on the person that's been abused? Like, is there a name for that?
Hold on, I don't want to quote the wrong one. Because what I don't mean to,
like I said, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
you're fine.
By the way, folks, I do this show because I love hanging out with my friend Achille, but I also do this show because I like to walk away from it having learned something. So I try to just be the audience and field questions that I think might be applicable to the given topics in which we cover.
So yeah, what I was thinking was Munchausen.
Okay.
Munchausen is a disorder in which the person who is abused or injured or hurt or goes through trauma fits within the subclass of called.
So that's like those. That's like you've seen The Sixth Sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the mom that was constantly feeding the daughter the cough medicine or whatever that was keeping her sick.
That's more abuse. So if the girl was like, if the daughter kept doing, like, she wouldn't keep poisoning herself, but if she kept taking she stayed with mom.
She knew
she stayed with her
what
mom
she was
and
taking.
knew that was going on.
Gotcha.
Munchausen syndrome is, I'm so used to the abuse. I'm so used to where I almost grow a connection. Then I start to seek it out because it's normalized for me.
Okay.
It's what I'm used to. So she probably was so abused and she didn't know anything else. She couldn't have, there's no way she could have probably done anything else, because dad was coming to visit her in the hospital and she wasn't, think about
and bringing her chickens.
Yeah.
Bringing her roasted chickens.
Yeah. And that was probably part of the
full
OCD.
Disclosure, who the hell's getting fat off eating lean chicken? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know, Carolyn. I know. But she's right. So when we talk about the chicken, that was the thing that, so a lot of times
you can control that.
You can control what you eat. You can control how much you eat. But after a while, she fit into the role of, I don't remember her last name, Mrs. So-and-so, like Angelina Jolie said. But that's when I say Angelina Jolie was a little bit like, okay, I'm going to break down. Because she was in there reading their files.
Right.
So she knew what was going on, and she knew how to push everybody's button. That's not a mistake. That's not happenstance. And you saw that Daisy wouldn't let her push her buttons, but her and Daisy were almost juxtaposed against each other. Because if you want to talk about degrees of sickness, who are the two sickest ones there? You know, you have two almost alphas going head to head, and it wasn't like, and that's probably why Daisy didn't like her, because Daisy, even though she was in a jilted reality, she still had her own reality. And Angelina Jolie wanted people to kind of fit into pieces, and Daisy didn't want to fit into her pieces. And like Angelina Jolie, you saw her constantly pushing and trying and pushing, trying to get to Daisy's buttons, but Daisy wouldn't let her. That's why it was always shut up, asshole. And that's how you deal with a narcissist. You shut them up and you don't play their games.
These are unanswerable questions. Maybe the book clarifies this, but I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the mother's not in the picture because
I think, I want to say the mom died.
But here's my point. Why did he buy her a house and put her in a house? Why wouldn't he just take her home? The father.
I would say probably because when you discharge, she was too
No,
old.
because if he's sexually abusing her this whole time, why would he spend money to? I mean, I know this sounds horrible, but like, why would you go buy her? Why wouldn't you just bring her?
Because I don't know that I don't remember.
Is that why Jeffrey Tambor's character, when he rolled up to the scene and they were carrying out her body, he just had that look of like, oh, I fucked up on his face?
Yeah.
Like, was this more like a?
Oh, was that the fake Dr. Phil?
Yeah, he looks like Dr. Phil. Yeah. Was it more of like almost like the idea of like a halfway house for her?
No, it was where she was supposed to live. Because now, big picture, I brought a house for you. I'm giving you money. I'm giving you food. So am I not putting you more into
you will let me abuse you, basically.
And but again, it became a point when, in Daisy's mind, I want to word this carefully, in Daisy's mind, it probably wasn't abuse anymore.
Just a way of life.
What she was used to. And you can't bring it to the house, that's going to look weird out of the hospital. So, like Carolyn's saying, it's the optics. You have to make it look normal. You have to make it look, because, you know, of everybody who was in there, she was the one that got out, probably because the stuff that was going on with her, Daisy seemed to have the most control over the things that she did.
Okay.
Because she was the ballerina. I think her name was she Tara? I think Tara was the ballerina. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the ballerina, she was anorexic. She was the one that was like, 74 pounds is a good weight. You know, she had stuff going on, but they didn't even really get into her story. And she just kind of was there because it really became, it was Daisy, it was Susanna, it was Lisa. It was kind of, and it was
this would be another, like, I'd give this one 6 to 8 episodes of a series.
Oh,
you know, I think it would really, to flesh out all the characters, right?
Yeah. Well, there was a lot that was going on in 2 hours. And her dad didn't want her in a halfway house, according to what, you know, what Carolyn had said. She said in the movie that her dad didn't want her in a halfway house. They probably wanted to discharge her to someplace. I'm sure hospital staff had an idea that stuff was going on, but you can't.
Well, what are you going to do? It was 1968.
How do you prove it?
What are you going to do? Go on Twitter and out him? You know?
Yeah. And he was also a person that she was leaning on.
Gotcha.
So, you know, that's how you get to I have a question for you. Do you think Angelina Jolie was the reason that Daisy killed herself, or do you think Daisy was going to kill herself anyway?
No, I think it was Angelina.
You think so?
Because, so how do I put this? This is just my honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was confronted with that head on before.
No.
Most certainly not by the doctors at the hospital, because they're confronting her about other issues, not that one, right? Mm-hmm. Because who's paying the bill for her to be there? Her father, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bad practice, yes, but reality.
Yeah.
And the fact that she said, and we know you like it, I think was what kind of set her off, and she didn't know how to handle that. She'd never been confronted with it before. But at the same time, maybe this was something that was going to inevitably happen. This just kind of rushed the process, for lack of a better term. What do you think?
I think Jimmy makes a good point.
There you go, Jimmy.
I think that someone had to bring it to her face for her to realize that, oh, this shit is serious. Because when you grow up, when you're groomed, and that's what it's called, that's what grooming is. When you're groomed, you know, you're there, you're by yourself, you're eating all this chicken, you know, your dad's there and all this stuff, and he's doing whatever, and whatever's happening, and he's having you play a role. Seen it happen. You have parents that put their children in the role of a parent that's not around, or parents that's deceased. So she's there now. What is she gonna? She never looked at it as any other thing, but this is what I guess is supposed to happen. Now you go into a mental hospital. You go into Claymore. Well, where's your reality? Like, where there's no reality, there's no basis for reality there. So you don't necessarily get healthier in places like that.
Right.
People go to jail to become what? Better criminals. Right? You go to an insane hospital, and I'm not, you go to a hospital like that, then are you going to get better? What are you doing in 2 weeks? Those are extreme examples of a year and a half, 2 years, but that's not really what happens that much anymore. Could she have gotten better? Maybe. You would have had to first take her dad out of her life. That wasn't going to happen. You'd have to deal with her bulimia. That probably wasn't going to happen because, like she said, she asked Suzanne. She said, hey, would you rather take a shit with everybody watching you or by yourself? A weird analogy, but if you are used to being in your own bubble, in your own world, and your dad's the only one you let in your bubble because he forced his way in, then you eventually just kind of let him come in. And you feel like he's supposed to be there. What would have happened?
That makes all the sense.
She would have never got healthy. She would have had to have a lot of help. She would have had to be almost away from her dad where she could start her life and learn like a baby, like basically learn life.
Sure.
I know, James. I know it doesn't go away. That's why I said she would have to relearn these things. She would have to learn how to first function. She would have to learn how to not be a victim because after a while, you don't even view yourself as a victim. I have a lady I work with. She was raped by her grandfather, her father, and her brother in different consecutive decades. Then her cousin sexually molested her, and then she had a kid at like 17. What does she know?
That's all she knows.
All she knows is violence, and all she knows is that that's what she knows. And I understand. I don't know that the education was possible, but that's what would have had to happen. And you see, what I like about the movie is it paints a real picture for most of the illnesses, and you really get a good idea because, like I said, most of them were spot on. Even Whoopi, where she was like, "I'm tired of your shit." It was like when Winona grabbed her and hugged her and said, after she came back. After she saw Daisy kill herself, she realized that that's when you have that moment.
That she's not crazy and she could leave the hospital. She didn't need to be there anymore.
She needed to do the work to get out of the hospital.
Right.
Does that require more work? Yes. Do I think you can just take borderline and take it off like a shirt? No. But
yeah, that's what really confused me about the ending. I was like, what do you mean? How is she cured?
Some of the quotes that were great from the movie because she said, "I don't know what I'm feeling." I liked when the cabbie was like, "What did you do? You look normal."
Yes.
I love that quote. I love that quote. Susan, when Lisa first comes in, she tells her the all weak people. which is pretty emblematic of how she felt. Then when they went out for ice cream and they said, don't put your finger in the face of crazy people. And it was interesting because they all united behind Susan in the ice cream parlor.
Right.
You know, and then she was like, oh, you're never going out again with Lisa.
Right.
So Lisa showed a moment where, you know, she could be human. But did she do that to build favor with Winona Ryder's character? What else did she say? What the fuck do they know about being normal? That was hilarious. Question for you.
Okay.
Is Susan Alice from Alice in Wonderland?
Definitely you could look at it through that perception. You know, she was somebody that was not interested in her life and went elsewhere, was yearning for something more, and through circumstance ended up somewhere else, and then learned a lot from very unorthodox people.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say.
Yep.
I would say. You know, if it was a fictional movie, they could have named her Alice, and that would have worked as like a little tip of the hat.
Yeah.
You know.
There was when right before Daisy killed herself, and she was talking, her and Lisa were going back, and that's when that was probably like almost the climax for Daisy and Lisa, because that was the first time Lisa was really challenged, And what did she say? She said, "You're just jealous, Lisa. I was released." The second time she was challenged was when they were downstairs, when they were down in the tunnels.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Susan told her, what'd she say? Hold on. What'd she say? She said, I know what it's, no, wait. What did she say? Oh, so the rest of what Daisy said was, "You're just jealous, Lisa. I was released. I had a chance. They didn't release you. They just gave up." She was fucking savage. That was savage. Yes, I do think that Lisa needed Daisy a lot. I do think that when they were down, I don't remember what she said, but when Winona Ryder was really going at her, saying that, you know, you're dead inside and all that stuff. Then Suzanne said, "I don't know what it's like to be her, but I know what it's like to want to die. I know what it's like to hurt yourself on the outside to kill what you feel inside." Oh, when Lisa stole her dictionary, I think it was great. Lisa said, "I'm just playing the villain like you wanted me to." That was tough. "I'm just playing the villain like you want me to." She's like, "You need me to be the villain." And I think she was right. I think their friendship had to go that course, and she had to learn that. So Lisa was almost the protagonist because she had to take Susan along the path and help her realize. She helped her escape. Susan saw what she could become if she kept following behind Lisa. Right. And I think that scared her a lot.
She was the tour guide, if you will.
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, listen, it was a very solid movie. I like that.
For sure. What would you get? You gave?
I give it like a high 3.5 stars. Wasn't quite a 4 out of 5, but like a high 3.5. We talk about that all the time on this channel. Is the 3.5 star rating can be deceiving because there's movies that are like, well, it's a little bit better than a 3, so I'm gonna go 3.5. And then there's movies that's like, man, it's so close to a 4, but I'm still gonna go 3. You know, it's kind of, you know, right? the latter category.
Yes.
Did you have any other things you wanted to bring up on the film?
The last scene where
Yeah.
Lisa, where she said, "You're already dead inside," and then Lisa was like, she was strapped down, and Suzanne came and painted her nails. She was like, "I'm not dead inside," and she started crying, and it was the first time that you saw. Well, not the first time. I think she was genuinely mad when she came in and Susan was there and Jamie, her old roommate, wasn't there. I think she was genuinely caught off guard then. And I think that when you see her crying at the end, that was the second time in like 3 or 4 consecutive scenes when she was told that nobody cared about her and she was already a lost cause. Because of all the things that you could say to somebody that you're working with in any capacity, you're not worth it. How do you respond to that?
For sure. For sure.
And I think Lisa wanted to show her, oh, okay. They gave up on me. Well, I'm gonna push all your buttons. And she probably saw that she was teetering. Because if you notice, like the whole movie, like Brittany Murphy was sad and always her eyes were always red, and she was always like little twitches, like subtle twitches. But that's it. It was a good movie. It was a great movie. I like watching it. I haven't watched it in a long time. And I forgot how much of it I remembered, but I forgot a lot of it. Like,
it's dense. It's a dense film.
Yes, sir.
Unlike Don't Say a Word, that movie was dense for no reason, but was kind of just like cheese puffs. You know, they not a lot of nutrients.
Which movie do you think Brittany Murphy was more believable in?
Oh, Girl Interrupted.
You think so?
I mean, believable either or.
Yeah.
Either or. I think it was very more realistic in terms of, listen, with the world we live in, I'm sure there's some lady that's been living in a psych wards for 10 years because she's scared of a diamond thief or a jewel thief. But you know what I mean? Like,
what movie? Let's see. I'm going to ask you some questions now. Who would you want to, if you walked into the ward at Claymore, who do you think you would have to like kind of ingratiate yourself with first?
So my personality?
Yes.
Lisa, Angelina Jolie's character, they were separated by gender then.
Yeah.
They're not separated by gender now. Like, we would have gotten along very well.
Yeah.
Just because, like, big personality. I don't have the problems that she has, but like big personality. Just kind of the big personalities usually they either hate each other or they're like totally into each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I also Winona Ryder's character, we probably would have gotten along pretty well. I definitely would not have gotten along with the girl that was obsessed with the Wizard of Oz because it's like you're a crazy person, but okay. And again, I mean this with all due respect, obviously.
Georgina,
yeah. And then the girl that like lit herself on fire as a child.
That was Torch.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, when you think about like, and that's one thing that what I really liked about it is that you could see their pain, and it was through the acting and through how they carried it. It wasn't, I went through a lot of pain and I was really struggling. It was actually, you saw it. And I thought that's what I said. But she deserved, I watched her awards speech for that. And that's the day that, she was all weird about her brother. And I don't know what's up with her brother, but Angelina.
When I think of Angelina Jolie from that time period, like
weird.
I think it was like a year or two later. That's when she was hooking up with Billy Bob Thornton, and they were like they had like the blood vials. Oh, I mean, like those were some wild times. Wild times.
So, nice. So I do think that we have some fun stuff lined up for the rest of the year. I know we want to do the Jokers.
So we'll just tell the people before the year's over, me and Achille will definitely get together again under this banner and hopefully have a conversation on the Joker films.
Yeah.
Both 1 and 2. because again, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on all of that. And then maybe we'll be able to fit in another movies and mental health this year, where we talk about other movies. If not, probably January or February, we'll be coming back with another one.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, and you can find me, Characters of Culture, Elder Millennials Behind the Counter. I'm off for the next week. Got a lot of things to do.
He doesn't take off. He's lying.
Well, I mean, I don't sit around and do nothing. That much I know. But what do you got going on, and where can the people find you?
You can find me on the Sir Joker Fishbeck Network. Rob Fishbeck Network. Wednesday, we're back with Overtly Opinionated. Me and James. We're going to be talking about a fun array of topics. On Wednesday, I know we're going to probably talk a little bit about Smile. I don't know if James saw it. He didn't answer me. But I know I want to talk about Smile. I saw an interesting little teaser.
Does James like to ignore you?
James is just James. I don't pay him much mind. He's in his own universe most of the time. He's in his own multiverse.
Oh, okay.
He's his own multiverse.
By the way, these are great, Carolyn. These are great. I've not seen The Soloist, but I've always wanted to watch it. And
you would love it. I didn't know.
Don't you worry. We will at some point, definitely next year, be getting to A Beautiful Mind. Yes. That movie is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I know. I'm going to try to. I got a couple people I'm trying to line up for experts, but you know what? We're rounding up the end of the year. I know we're going to get into The Alchemist on. Jimmy, don't invite Carol and my friend to my show. We're going to get into The Alchemist on Overtly Opinionated. I'm probably going to let the year bring back Joker Presents next year. Got to get some stuff back together. It's just been really busy.
We've just had so much going on.
Stuff going on, yeah.
Yes.
So much stuff.
And people like to bust my balls on this channel, but nobody's making any money. So we are here because we want to be here, not because we're being paid to, or we've got advertising dollars or any of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, hold on. Come on, stop being it. I was going to ask her. She knows about all my shows, James. That Carolyn's like my sister, sure. Anyway. But yeah, that's it. Next month we'll try to squeeze one or two more in.
Yeah.
Me and Rob have to sit down.
It's always fun. It's always fun. I'm just like, I'm on three shows now.
Yep.
And Justin the Juice and I are starting a Martin Scorsese podcast soon. I got to get back to him with that. So I will have four shows. The way it's probably going to work out is Characters of Culture is every other week. EMBC's hopefully going to start being twice a month. This show is like every other month, and Martin Scorsese show is once a month. So like you'll have new content every week on this channel.
Yeah. And am I on 4 shows? Experts, Overtly, this show. Yeah, Joker LMH Presents. But the new year with New Year, every year, me and the Fishbeck, we try to twist it up and have new stuff. So we'll see what's coming in.
That's what makes it fun. Can you believe we've been doing this for 4 years on this channel? This is great. Isn't it fantastic?
Well, I know Experts is going into season 4.
Yeah. Yeah. 21, 22, 23. We're going to be going into season 5 for Characters of Culture. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. It's wild. How fast it went. But anyway, Rob, it was a pleasure.
Likewise. Always is. But all right, we're going to end the show here. So you guys have a great night. Stay safe. Be safe out there, everybody. It's a wild world, and we're just living in it.